All right, fight fans, UFC 311 is coming up, and we've got a bantamweight bout that I am so ready for. Ricky Hadouken Turcios versus Bernardo the Lion King Sopaj.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Two very different fighters, each with their own way to win. It's a really interesting matchup to break down, especially when we start thinking about predictions.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing today. Not just, who might win, but like, how do people even come up with those predictions? And what should you be looking for to make your own, guesses?
Yeah.
Maybe even put down some money on it.
People see those betting odds and they just think, oh, favorite underdog. Simple. But it's way more complicated than that. And this fight is like the perfect example of how stats and expert opinions all come together.
Okay, so let's like set the scene here. Imagine we're picking our fighters in a video game.
Yeah.
In one corner, we've got Turcios, the veteran, 31 years old, 72-inch reach. That's 6 inches longer than Sopaj. And his record, 12 wins, 4 losses with KO submissions, and a lot of decisions.
And then in the other corner, you've got Sopaj the Lion King, only 24 years old, 11-3 record. But what's crazy is how he's getting those wins, 7 of them by knockout. That's some serious power, especially for bantamweight.
It's like picking between a really quick swordsman and a brawler. So let's get into their strengths and weaknesses, starting with Turcios. What do you see?
Turcios' biggest strength is his stamina. Dude's like the Energizer Bunny in the octagon. He's gone the distance in so many fights, wearing opponents down with that constant pressure, just a pace they can't keep up with.
Right, but he doesn't have that knockout power. He's more about outlasting them than overwhelming them.
Exactly. And that's where Sopaj is dangerous. He's explosive, aggressive, throwing punches and kicks like he wants to take your head off. When he lands, it's over.
But doesn't that aggressive style sometimes work against him? What if he can't land that big shot early on?
That's the big question. We have seen Sopaj fade in later rounds, especially against fighters who can survive that first onslaught. And Turcios does have that reach advantage. He can keep Sopaj back, pick his shots, and wait for the chance to take him down.
So it's like Turcios wants to make it a chess match, and Sopaj's going for a quick checkmate.
Perfect way to put it. And that's what makes this fight so interesting. Do you bet on experience and endurance or raw power and aggression?
Well, before we jump into predictions, let's look at their last few fights. Turcios last fought Raul Rosas Jr., the rising star, and lost by submission in the second round.
Tough loss. But before that, he had a good win over Kevin Natividad when all 3 rounds showed off that cardio we were talking about.
So recent loss, but a win before that showing he can go the distance. But what about Sopaj? His last 2 fights haven't been great, have they?
No, not really. He's coming off back-to-back losses, both by knockout against Vinicius de Oliveira and Javain Vargas.
Which is interesting because he has so much knockout power. Does that worry you at all?
It does make you think about his chin and if he can take a punch. But before those losses, he had a knockout win against Julian Lopez and then a decision over Carla Manasian.
Okay, so both fighters have won and lost recently, but those knockout losses for Sopaj got to factor into the predictions, right?
Oh, absolutely. It might show a weakness that a smart fighter like Turcios can use.
So how do those recent fights, along with their strengths and weaknesses, how does that all turn into a fight plan? What's the strategy here?
Well, for Turcios, it seems pretty clear. Use that reach, stay away from those early exchanges where Sopaj is dangerous, and try to drag it out into the later rounds where Sopaj might get tired.
So classic rope-a-dope. Wear him down, then go in for the finish.
You got it. Clinches, takedowns, jabs, leg kicks. Anything to frustrate Sopaj and drain his energy.
And Sopaj, I'm guessing he's going to be hunting for that knockout early and often.
Absolutely. He needs to make those first 2 rounds count. Head kicks, overhand rights, whatever it takes. Catch Turcios off guard, end it fast.
Yeah.
The longer it goes, the worse it is for him.
So we've got a real clash of styles here. 2 very different fighters, each with a clear way to win. But what if things don't go as planned? What if Turcios can't get Sopaj down? What if Sopaj can't land that big shot?
Those are the questions that make MMA so unpredictable and why the betting odds are so fun.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to unpack the predictions, the betting options, and what you should be looking for so you can make your own guesses.
Because remember, this is more than just a fight. It's a puzzle. It's a story waiting to happen. Welcome back. We're diving deeper into this matchup between Turcios and Sopaj.
Yeah, we just left off talking about those what-ifs, those moments that can change the whole fight.
Yeah, and I think now's the time to look at the predictions. This is where it gets really interesting if you're thinking about betting or just want to get better at predicting fights.
Right, because these odds aren't just random numbers. They're based on a ton of data, past fights, and what the experts think. People who really understand the sport.
Exactly. And for this fight, the prediction we're looking at favors Sopaj winning by knockout in round 2.
Round 2 knockout. That's a pretty big statement, especially with Turcios being so tough and experienced. What makes him think that?
It all comes down to Sopaj's striking. He hits hard and he's accurate. Even though Turcios can take a punch, the experts think Sopaj will find that opening. Maybe when Turcios tries to take him down, and that'll be it.
So if you're betting Sopaj by KO, seems like a safe bet.
It's definitely the favorite. The odds are about Nagas 300 right now, so you'd have to bet $300 to win $100.
But what about those of us who like to root for the underdog? What are Turcios' odds looking like?
Well, as you'd expect, they're a bit longer, plus 290. So a $100 bet could win you $290 if he pulls off the upset.
So if you believe in Turcios, if you think he can survive and outlast Sopaj, there's potential for a big win.
For sure. And there are even more specific bets, like
Yeah.
Sopaj winning by KO in round 2 specifically, which would pay out even more than just betting on him to win.
And for the real risk takers, there's always betting on Turcios to win by decision. Not likely with Sopaj's power, but hey, the odds are huge.
True, but remember, the higher the odds, the bigger the risk.
Okay, so we've got all these betting options. From the safe bet on Sopaj to the risky one on Turcios. But let's step back from the odds for a second. What are we actually going to be watching for in this fight? What are the key moments that could decide who wins?
For me, it's all about that first round. Can Turcios survive Sopaj's early attacks? Can he avoid those big punches and kicks and get into his own rhythm?
Yeah, if Turcios can get out of that first round without too much damage, his chances go way up.
Absolutely. Because then his cardio and his wrestling start to become a real problem for Sopaj. We've seen him win fights in those later rounds just by wearing guys down until they can't fight back.
So for anyone betting, keep a close eye on that first round. It could tell you everything you need to know about how the rest of the fight's going to go.
And even if you're not betting, those early exchanges are going to be so much fun to watch. Two skilled fighters, different styles going at it. Doesn't get much better than that.
All right, so we've covered the predictions, the odds, some key things to watch for. But before we move on, I got to say, this is MMA. Anything can happen.
Exactly. Upsets happen all the time. That's what keeps this sport so exciting. Sopaj might be the favorite, but Turcios is more than capable of surprising everyone.
So do your research think about those bets, if that's your thing, and most importantly, enjoy the fight.
We'll be back for part 3 of our deep dive. We'll talk about what this fight means for the bantamweight division and what's next for both of these fighters.
Okay, we're back for the final round of our deep dive. We've looked at all the stats, the styles, the predictions, even those betting odds.
Yeah, we talked about upsets, what to watch for, really tried to figure out what these guys are thinking.
But now I want to zoom out a little. What does this fight actually mean for the bantamweight division?
That's a great point, because this fight has big implications for both Turcios and Sopaj. Could really shake things up in the rankings.
In Turcios, a win would be huge at this point in his career.
Right, he's 31, coming off that loss to Rosas, beating a knockout artist like Sopaj, would prove he's still a top guy, that his experience still matters.
It would shut down all that talk about him being past his prime. Put him right back in the running for a title shot.
Exactly. But for Sopaj, a win is like essential right now.
Yeah, he needs to come back from those 2 knockouts if people are going to start doubting him.
Those losses hurt his image as this unstoppable force. Beating a veteran like Turcios would be huge for his confidence. Show everyone he's learned from those losses, and he's ready to move up.
So you've got Turcios fighting for his legacy, and Sopaj fighting to prove he belongs.
High stakes, 2 hungry fighters, completely different styles. It's the kind of fight that gets everyone talking and really messes with those rankings.
We've talked so much about predictions, but now I'm really curious. What's your gut feeling on this one?
That's a tough one. On paper, Sopaj has the advantage with that power. But there's something about Turcios, that veteran smarts, that makes me think he might find a way to beat Sopaj.
That's why I love this sport. Logic and analysis can only take you so far. In the end, it's 2 guys in the cage. Anything can happen.
It's all about skill, strategy, and heart. It all comes down to those few minutes in the cage. And no matter who wins, we're going to see a great fight.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. Forget the predictions, forget the bets. What are you going to be watching for in this fight?
What are those little details, those moments that tell the story of the fight? Because that's what makes MMA so interesting. It's not just about who wins, it's about how they get there.
And on that note, we'll let you think about it. Make your bets and get ready for what's going to be an amazing fight. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.